Let's be honest, some people get bored with the iPhone. I mean, it's the exact same experience and sometimes the same phone year after year, but why do users continue to stay? It's easy. Consistency and continuity, and no, they are not brainwashed. Now, yes, there are Apple sheep just like there are Samsung Knights, but what's the difference? But the difference is that the Z Fold 6 can give you a user experience that no iPhone or iPad can unless the two or until the two combine. A device like the Z Fold 6 can easily tempt a bored iPhone user to seek the adventurous user experience of a foldable. It's kind of cool though, right? And I see iPhone users all of the time in my comment section, comment after comment, sharing their journey outside of the walled garden. And just to be clear, the walls are invisible. So what is it really like switching from an iPhone into the Galaxy Z Fold 6? And let's get straight into what you will lose by leaving the iPhone. The biggest one being iMessage, of course. And even with RCS coming to iOS, iMessage is still a separating factor because it's more than just blue and green bubbles and terrible video messages from Android users, because there is a full-on continuity integration within the Apple ecosystem that goes beyond just messages, videos, and photos. Things like Apple Cash, location, and so on. There are many more that you could link, but like the sharing capabilities and so forth. All in all, iMessage in its full and total package cannot be duplicated in going to another Android. And it just is what it is, but you also lose the ecosystem unity if you have other Apple products such as, Apple Watches, AirPods, iPads, and so on. There will be no more FaceTime, and app priority from developers is gone out the window, and that is a huge one, which we'll discuss a little bit more later. And unfortunately, there will be no more AirDrop, but to be fair and honest, QuickShare is practically identical. And last but not least, your resale value on your device will decrease. Now, Samsung has a very aggressive trade-in value, but that requires you to purchase from Samsung and to stay with Samsung. When on the other hand, iPhones carry high trade-in value with other providers, other manufacturers, and other brands with the hopes in getting you to switch out of your iPhone. Now, before all of you Android users rush to the comment section naming every alternative app for all of these features, we have to acknowledge and give props and respect to iOS and the iPhone for making all of these features native and integrated with no need for any third-party app. And as I've said before, there is life outside of the iPhone. I'm living it right now, and it's not as bad or as far-fetched as you would think. When it comes to a foldable, I feel like it's one of those experiences that every tech enthusiast or just smartphone users should experience at least once. It doesn't have to be now. It's not for everyone, but at some point, I think a foldable device should be experienced in order to rule it out as being a possible mobile experience that you could actually fall greatly in love with. Now, which manufacturer that is up to you, as right now I'm currently choosing the Samsung route with this Z Fold 6, but foldables are a quite unique experience, and again, I will iterate that it's not for everyone. Simplest way put for Apple users to understand, this is my iPad mini and iPhone all into one. So outside of the physical key differences with the Z Fold 6, what is life like outside of those key features I just mentioned? Well, let me explain. Well, believe it or not, Samsung has a pretty well-developed ecosystem. Hence, these Galaxy Buds 3 Pro, which can rival the AirPods Pro, except for in transparency mode. Apple got that, just gotta be honest. And we have things like the Samsung Galaxy Watch 6 Classic, which in my opinion looks better than any Apple Watch. And it's a more traditional feel, and it's also a good smartwatch for the experience. The Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra, which I have mine over there kitted out on my PC gaming setup because it's an extension to my PC. Talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, you can expand your monitor just like you do on Apple with the Tab, S9 or S9 Ultra, whatever you choose. The same way I can use my iPad as an external monitor on my Mac OS computer. So I'm using the Tab S9 Ultra in that very fashion right now at my gaming PC setup. It's more to the ecosystem. And you can even add washer and dryers, refrigerators, and microwave via SmartThings into that Samsung ecosystem. Yeah, it's quite extensive. So there is obviously a Samsung ecosystem that can, in some ways, rival the Apple ecosystem. Now, unfortunately, as far as app priority goes, I think developers will always, prioritize or favor coding for iOS as it's far simpler than coding for Android, which has so many more variables and so much fragmentation. If you code for iOS, you code for one iPhone, you code for generally all of them. You code for an iPad, you code for all of them, and so on. So it's just the favorite of app developers, and I don't think that's going anywhere. So unfortunately, that does not change. Now, as far as FaceTime goes, Apple did open up the ability for Apple users to send you a link if you're on Android in order to be able to engage in a FaceTime call. So you don't really lose it fully, but you do because you can't send that link from your Android to that said Apple user. And also when you're communicating outside of Apple users, you're going to need a third-party app. There are plenty of them. There are many of them, and I guess you can pick and choose, and you guys can coordinate that, you and your other, Android users. But you can definitely take video calls on Android. It's not as seamless and integrated as FaceTime, but there's a way around it. And as I said before, Quick Share is almost identical to AirDrop, so you get those features. You can quick share from device to device, device to tablet, and device to computer. So that kind of eliminates the AirDrop argument. So there are obviously solutions to all of these missing features when you leave the iPhone and jump into something like the Z Fold 6. Now, the Z Fold 6 build quality and design is on par with most of what you get within an iPhone, like high quality OLED panels, high quality body and finishes, nice seamless design, especially in the Z Fold 6 in comparison to the previous Z Folds, which is why I point this one out specifically. But this one has cleaned up its design extremely well versus the previous models. So it's going to feel just as premium as an iPhone. Now, there are areas where the iPhone's build quality is going to outshine the Z Fold 6 as it has a higher dust resistant rating at IP68 when this one is only IP48. So same water resistance, but when it gets to dust and also having more failure points, it's obvious that the Z Fold 6 is not as tried and true as a design as the iPhone or S24 Ultra, should we say. But ultimately, these foldables are actually quite tough. I've dropped my Z Fold 5 and got a nice ding on it, but it's still working and operating as I was lucky, because not everyone is lucky. So gotta point out the build quality differences coming from an iPhone and jumping into something like this, a foldable. When you move past those, failure points, you can embrace the innovative take on a mobile device that is the Z Fold 6, like literally being able to close your device, still have access to your device at an outer panel, or being able to take a selfie with the main better quality cameras via your outside panel. You can embrace the innovative take of a mobile device that is the Galaxy Z Fold 6. I enjoy it every day that I use it, and it kind of aids with the switch. So not only do you get two screens, which gives you two ways of interacting with your device, you can also benefit from the freedom that is Android, which allows you to customize your device to your own individual taste. I mean, as you can see, my custom home screen layout, my custom grid, my custom icon pack, my custom widget, all of which cannot be duplicated on any iOS or iPhone device. Not even an iPad can do this. Because essentially all iPhones function and look almost the exact same, and there's no room or opportunity for much individuality. I mean, even with iOS 18, you cannot match the custom feel and just the custom truth that can be experienced here on the Android and Samsung One UI platform. It's unmatched. And honestly, this sense of freedom is very refreshing, very freeing, and very much allowing you to give your own individual take on how you interpret your mobile device being. Hence, this is my layout. I know I got to make a video about this one. A lot of people ask me about this layout. I give you guys the, bare bones basis. It's a Nova Launcher with the crayon icon pack. This is a custom widget right here. That's the part where I got to make the video. So it's coming, hopefully. So custom launchers, custom icon, custom widgets, custom home screen grids, custom keyboards, and the list goes on. Big reasons why a bored iPhone user might switch to a Galaxy Z Fold 6. Now, let's be real, not every iPhone user will enjoy the switch out of an iPhone into a Z Fold 6 or an Android for that matter. This outer screen just can't compare to the size of the normal smartphone display that we're used to. It's a little too narrow. I say this all the time when I speak about this device. Also, the inner panel is a lot bigger and more device to hold, typically a two-handed device, but you can do it one-handed in this form factor. That is until they do the Z Fold Ultra. But, what you're used to holding in the typical, smartphone or iPhone experience changes a lot when you switch over to this larger panel. But there's also benefits to that, a lot of them. We'll talk about those in a second. But honestly, losing some iOS features are a non-negotiable for many iOS users, and I totally understand that position. But I also understand those who would switch. I mean, the screen quality on the Z Fold 6 is just as good as an iPhone screen, especially when you turn on. I mean, you have to turn it on to natural and not vivid. Vivid is something else happening. The natural screen design or screen color profile is the accurate color profile, which is going to be equivalent to that of what you're used to on your iPhone. Keep that in mind. And in many ways, the sizing of the internal display gives you a far better interaction or media consumption experience due to its sizing, especially when it comes to apps that are optimized for foldables, as you tend to get more UI on the screen, more features, and a better experience. But the key is, I said, optimize. These apps have to be optimized for foldables, as not every app is optimized for foldables. Something to keep in mind when considering a foldable, because every smartphone app is optimized for the typical smartphone size, case in point, the iPhone. But there are also apps that you can get on Android that you can't get on an iPhone, and vice versa. So it kind of helps balance it out. But as more and more apps are being optimized for foldables and more apps have their UI expanded across and using the extra screen real estate, the experience separates itself via the Z Fold from any normal smartphone, including the iPhone. So I love the direction of where this is going. It's still going though. Now, as far as camera quality goes, it's debatable, obviously debatable, but my personal opinion, I prefer the iPhone cameras over the Z Fold 6's cameras, or any Samsung camera. I've said this year after year in reference to Samsung cameras, and it's as simple as this: color science and exposure. Look it up, do your research, watch some of my videos, my review videos, even the one reviewing this one. You'll see. Also, the speakers on the Galaxy Z Fold 6 are comparable to the speakers on the iPhone, especially when consuming media on this larger panel. Flipping it into this more horizontal consuming, point right here. This is where I'm at right here. Speakers firing it out and stereo, boom, boom. This is quality media consumption right here. I love it. And as far as performance goes with the Z Fold 6, I'm doing just fine. Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, it's laying down. The smack it down. Now, the battery, unfortunately, isn't the same size if you use like the 15 Pro Max and so forth. But if you got a 15 Pro or any other these smaller iPhones, I mean, it's comparable for sure in terms of battery optimization and performance. And when it comes to gaming, I enjoy gaming on the Z Fold 6, as where else do you get a screen this size that you can attach, a mobile controller to and game? It's a different experience for sure. And it performs just as good as an iPhone for gaming. And in some ways, probably better, because there's a lot of optimization with this device and other Samsung devices specifically towards gaming. And you'll also get the option of using an S Pen on the inner panel only. But if that's something you're into, that just expands the user experience of the Z Fold 6 in comparison to said an iPhone. But most of all, and most important, is user experience, which is why I'm going to take a second to share my unfiltered, honest, and open truth about my user experience when it comes to the Z Fold 6 as an iPhone user, aka an Apple user. Let me just start here. Unfolding and using a Z Fold, or foldable for that matter, is an experience that is exciting and innovative in the mobile device arena, and it's something that's missing. Like, I mean, the typical, glass sandwich phone design, this thing has plateaued and reached its peak, right? It's good. It's really great at what it does, and it delivers on, or as it is expected to. But boy, when you get into something like this and you embrace the reality of what this is, and I know it's on Android, so there are compromises that come with embracing something like this, but man, if you are open-minded, or as open-minded as I am, this experience right here, for those who it's for, is top tier. It's like unmatched in the sense that, man, I just love the bigger screen. I love scrolling TikTok, on this bigger screen right here. I love all of that screen real estate being used. The same goes for Instagram or Twitter, even in YouTube, like the grid for YouTube, and seeing how much screen real estate is taking up, how many more videos I can see while scrolling down my timeline for YouTube is absolutely clutch. And not only does it work this way, it works that way. So you get 3 rows, and it's very reminiscent of what you get on a tablet or a laptop, like literally. So it's almost like having a laptop, yet tablet and phone for sure, all in one. And that experience, to me, is very much enjoyable. I love replying to your comments on this device. Literally, that's what I exclusively reply to your comments with, is this device. I love the size, being able to see the full comment and read it out, being able to type 2 thumb on this nice massive keyboard right here, and in this keyboard you get something called the clipboard, something that I need iOS to add for real, because being able to have my repetitive replies, I literally just go into my clipboard, tap right there, and my response is instant. And I love little things like that, but most of all, I love the screen real estate of the interior display on this device, and that just is what makes my user experience so much different and so much, in some ways, better than what I get on an iPhone. Now, when it comes to this outer panel, I'm not gonna lie, not my favorite. A bit too narrow. I want it to get wider. But the refinements that Samsung has made on this device thus far, the weight is very close to and is as comparable as the larger, 15 Pro Max. Is literally a few grams that separate them. So yes, you fold it down, and even at a folded down, sizing, it's not that much thicker. So at this point in this design development, and as foldables are getting even thinner with other manufacturers, there's not much, keeping you from experiencing something like this, except for worries about, failure points as far as the hinge, the foldable screen, and so forth. But as someone who is a primary Apple user, iPhone user, and I've jumped, head first into the Z Fold experience fully, along with, the Samsung devices, into the ecosystem. Video coming soon about switching into the Samsung ecosystem. But I can say this: I am enjoying every bit of my Galaxy Z Fold 6 experience. In many ways, it is better. In some ways, it's not. And that's just how it's always going to be in between these two systems. But I can wholeheartedly say, if we're being real, the user experience is just as good and in many ways better with the Galaxy Z Fold 6.
I rise and I wake and I gotta go get it. I'm making my bed and it's straight to the digits.
Now, let's be quite frank and clear in this video. I'm sharing what it is like to be an Apple user who switches into the Z Fold 6. Give someone a peek behind the curtain. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm switching completely to the Galaxy Z Fold 6 and ditching all of my Apple devices. That's not going to happen because I use all Apple and Android devices simultaneously at all times. And you guys know my preference.
No cup of jokers, this is acidic, so I take a shot with the lemon and ginger. Look in the mirror like, yeah, I'm that. Look in the mirror like, I'm fitted. Looking outside like the world is all mine. Look in the mirror like, go get it. I gotta get to the scene, I gotta get to the bag now. I can't be chasing on these. They getting they feeling and dragged down. That's why they just crash out. Stuck in the selling this man down. Life getting gone in a flash now. Fitting in, I'ma stand out. I done seen these